All right, we are officially live. So welcome to the 2018 Booktube SFF Awards. If you are joining us, hopefully you've read the majority of the works. Some of us have and some of us haven't. But we are all here, our lovely judges for this year's awards. So you're here on my channel. I am Sam from Thoughts on Tomes. We have Chelsea from The Reading Outlaw.
Hi, guys.
We have Connor from Connor O'Brien.
Hi.
We have Elena from Elena Reads Books. Hello. We have Elizabeth from Books and Pieces, who is our lovely administrator for all this and keeps everything running. Otherwise, this would never happen.
She's the main brain. We couldn't do it without Elizabeth.
She's definitely keeping everything in order. We have Frankie from Frankie Reads.
Hi.
We have Caitlin from Kitty G.
Hey.
We have Rachel from Calinati.
Hello.
And we have Thomas from SFF 180.
Hello.
So we have a ton of categories to get through. We have multiple categories that have a lot of picks in it. So we're going to get straight into it with the short works. So this year for short work judges, we have Rachel, Caitlin, and Chelsea. So Chelsea, do you want to start and let us know your pick for short work?
Yeah, I mean, I think this was obviously a really strong category. I had a really hard time narrowing it down, but a big thing for me when I was reading all the nominees this year is I feel like I'm reading through a very 2018 adjusted lens. So the things that are my favorite this year might not have been the things that have been my favorite in other years. For that reason, my vote is for All Systems Red by Martha Wells. I love Murderbot so much. To feel such a deep, empathetic, almost soul connection with this robot who just wanted to ignore her programming and watch reality TV instead. It just spoke to me on such a level. And I love Shannon and I love Binti's whole arc and stuff. But I think for that reason, for me, it's got to go to All Systems Red this year.
Fantastic. Caitlin, your vote.
Okay, so I'm going to go straight in and say that I completely agree. And I've also voted for All Systems Red. So sorry, whoever else is in this category, but bad luck. Good one. So yeah, no, I completely agree. I also think it's a strong category. I had a hard time choosing between Shauna Maguire and this one, but I think, yeah, Murderbot was just too ridiculously I don't know, original, but also completely a play on a trope. And I just really, really enjoyed the story. And yeah, really excited to carry on the series. So that gets my vote too.
And Rachel.
I completely agree. I can't see any. I don't see any girl about a lot of things, but I absolutely love Murderbot and All Systems Red. I really enjoyed the whole Binti series as well, and Down Among the Sticks and Bones. But Murderbot, it made me so happy both times that I read it, and that is really important right now.
Just every time I hear the word Murderbot, I just smile a little. I'm just it's so good.
Yeah, exactly. So
Especially since it was a self-given nickname, right?
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. So, I mean, we obviously know who the judges' pick was for who won that category. I'm not sure if the popular vote matched up. So and the judges, besides Elizabeth, don't know what the popular vote is.
Yes,
So
That's right. It's all tense.
Yeah.
Yeah, I should clarify. I am the adjudicator, so I don't vote. I don't nominate. I don't vote. I just add up what everybody else has voted.
We just don't like numbers, so Elizabeth does
that. Power and numbers. Yeah, so basically you guys are in complete disagreement with everybody.
Oh no.
Oh
no. Yeah, the winner of the best short work in popular vote was Down Among the Sticks and Bones.
Not surprising.
After a very tight contest for the shortlist, this book romped home with almost triple the votes of its nearest competitor, which was All Systems Red. So this won by miles.
Landslide.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
I mean, that's fair. It
It's
isn't really.
It's the best one of that series. Yeah.
It is. It's really good.
Really
and it is a very popular series, so it makes sense that probably most people have read that one and maybe chose that one.
Yeah, if you haven't picked up the other.
So if I remember correctly, it won last year's short category.
Yeah.
I may be misremembering that, but did a strong showing last year too. So
yeah.
More deserving this year, but yeah.
Yeah, definitely. All right, so that was short for short.
Short and
So let's
short and sweet. I like it, guys.
That's awesome. We just blasted through that category in 5 minutes.
Exactly. We want to have a lot of time for the big categories.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So,
well, that's because Elizabeth has a 20-minute music number. We have to make time for them.
yes.
Yeah, we had a big song and dance in the middle.
Yeah.
Exactly. And time for snacks and interlude and everything else.
There's a hot dog gun. It's going to be like a whole thing.
The next category is going to be graphic work. So the judges for that are myself, Caitlin, Frankie, Connor, and Chelsea. And I'm just going to like take off with this because, you know, I'm running the show. Monstrous is my pick for this. I love the series, and Monstrous just continues to blow me away. It probably didn't catch quite how much I felt about Volume 1, but I still thought that Volume 2 was my favorite of all of these. I did not like Everyone's an Alien and you're I hated it. I was mad the entire time. And I also
big sad face.
I'm sorry. I know it's cute. It's stupid. And and I don't know what the big deal is with Paper Girls. I'm very meh about Paper Girls. 3 volumes in and I don't know what the hell is going on. I'm a little annoyed about that. And then my favorite thing is Monsters. I thought was a great work, but just still didn't live up to my expectations and stuff. So definitely Monstrous for its beauty in both story and art. So Caitlin, what was your choice?
I feel like I'm just going to become a parrot in this live show because everything you just said is exactly how I felt on all of them. Like, completely agree across the board. Monstrous was my favorite again. I also agree that
weight of my heavy size.
I mean, I did like Everyone's an Alien probably more than Sam did. I thought it was quite fun, but yeah, it was a little bit sort of surface level for me. But yeah, Monstrous. I loved the first volume more. Like you said, but I still thought it was really, really good story and lovely artwork and everything. And then I actually loved the artwork of My Favorite Thing is Monsters. That's the kind of artwork that I adore, and I was so enthralled by the artwork. I just thought the story was a bit weird. So yeah, my vote is also for Monstrous though.
Okay, Frankie.
I too am voting for Monstrous. And the reason that I'm voting for Monstrous is because really it boils down to art style and it boils down to storyline. And for me, out of all of the selections in this category, Monstrous was the only storyline that held my attention and that I was, really interested in and really invested in. Everyone is an Alien was a total fail for me. I thought that it was just, I thought that it attempted to do something like really sort of inspirational, but also cutesy at the same time. And I just wish that the author had chosen to go in one direction or the other. And then my favorite thing is Monsters. I did not care for the art style at all on that one, and I thought the storyline was just okay. And I totally agree with Sam about Paper Girls and just what is even happening? What is even going on? So it was definitely Monstrous for me.
Awesome. Connor.
I also am voting for Monstrous Volume 2. I just think it's way better than the rest of them. I agree that Paper Girls is just kind of meh. It's okay. It's fun to read, but it's not something that like I really love. One thing about my favorite thing is Monsters is it even SFF? Like, there's not really any science fiction or fantasy elements in there besides she loves monsters. I really liked it, but
it has like that magical realism, surrealism element to it, right? Like it's sort of like where you're kind of like, is this fantasy or is this in her head? And
like
that
the ghost character.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess there is some, but there wasn't very much.
Yeah,
I hear that.
I did really like the artwork, and my favorite thing is Monsters. But
and Chelsea.
Okay, friends.
Last while you've been sighing.
Let's do a little bit of talking about some graphic novels, okay? So here's my thing. Everyone's an Alien when you're an Alien too is like not a story that makes a fucking lick of sense. But I wanted to pull whole pages out of my library copy and like tuck them into my pocket for sad times and like carry them around. So I won't win my vote for the category. I do just love it a whole bunch. And I thought it was very nice to have something that really the whole purpose of it was just to be cute and at the same time to kind of ask some of the bigger questions. My vote is for My Favorite Thing is Monsters. This book was not only, I think, my favorite art style, not that I dislike Monstrous. Monstrous is beautiful, but Monstrous, in my opinion, can also be very busy. It's very dense. There is a lot that goes on in each trade volume of Monstrous. And so sometimes that can be a lot to kind of wade through, whereas I felt like My Favorite Thing is Monsters was the girl graphic novel Stephen King book that I didn't get to read when I was younger. It's like those real life fictional monster crossovers combined with like a true affinity and love for like classic monsters, those like 50s, 60s, 70s style illustrated like actual supernatural creatures. It won't win because that's how democracy works, but I just think it was super great. And so my vote is for My Favorite Thing is Monsters by Emil Ferris.
Awesome. So what was our popular vote, Elizabeth?
Okay, so I think we're going to be 100% unsurprised that Monstrous Volume 2 won by like miles and miles and miles.
Yeah.
It also won the Hugo Award last year when it won this award last year. And it was nominated in Hugo Best Graphic this year. So maybe it'll win.
Hey.
But so are our other shows.
We're going to be like the Producers Guild of SFF. Whatever wins the Booktube SFF Awards predicts, the Hugos.
Yes, fingers on the pulse
just like
of the
Producers
genre.
Guild predicts the Oscars.
We can do
That's us. We're the tastemakers.
We are a good predictor. However, I think we should also address where the other Sam is, because somebody's asked on the YouTube.
I put a comment in there quickly, but I don't know if anyone's seen it. I put a comment in there just saying Sam can't make it tonight for personal reasons, but she sent us all her votes and she's absolutely fine. It's just life happens and she couldn't make it tonight.
Yeah, she sends her regrets. She was very bummed that she had some stuff come up and couldn't make it. So, but we have her votes.
We do. Yeah. We do. And that is actually really good transition because I was going to mention that because the next category she has votes for. So the next category is middle grade. So our judges for that are Sam, Elena, Frankie, Chelsea, and Connor. So we'll start with Elena for this.
Oh, me. Okay. Well, my vote goes to Nevermore because I loved it. It gave me all those lovely feels I had when I first read Harry Potter. And like, I'm at an age where I was reading it when it first came out. And it's not Harry Potter. I really hate it that they've tried to like use that marketing, but I think anybody that actually reads it will love it for itself. And I just thought like it was so magical, wonderful, and like who doesn't like a book with a talking humongous cat? And seriously, if they can invent some sort of steam room I can go into and smell like foods and things like that, I'd be well away. So yeah, I love it.
Which probably won't make any sense if you have somehow missed reading that particular book.
Yeah,
I want to. But yeah, that was mine. And I actually DNF'd two in this category, Witchwood and Magnus Chase. I know, I'm sorry, Connor, but I really don't get on with Magnus Chase. I like some of Rick Riordan's books, but this one And Witchwood, I wasn't sure I was going to like anyway because I didn't really like the first one so much. It was okay. Prosper Redding, I really enjoyed actually. I gave it 4, but Nevermore was a full 5 stars. I mean, it was way above for me. So that's my vote.
Awesome. Frankie.
Yes, I too am voting for Nevermore. I absolutely loved this story. And just an FYI, like amongst all of the stories that I read for all of the categories, this was actually my favorite. It was, to me, it was reminiscent of Harry Potter, like Elena said, but it had enough of its own twist and enough of its own sort of mythology and whatnot that it was acceptable for it to be Harry Potter adjacent without it just being a total ripoff, So my second favorite in this was also The Dreadful Tale of Prosper Redding, although much further down as far as how much I liked it. And Magnus Chase, the way that I feel about Rick Riordan stories in general is that they're fun. And they're quick and they're fast and there's so much happening, but they're never going to be my favorite middle grade reads, but I do enjoy those. And then Witchwood, I didn't get around to that one. So for me, it's definitely going to be Nevermore.
Awesome. Chelsea.
Okay. Yet again, over here being contrary. My pick is actually for The Dreadful Tale of Prosper Redding. I have a deep affinity and affection for middle grade books starring demons, devils, and evil spirits of all sorts. This book very much straight on brand. This book reminded me a lot of The Amulet of Samarkand by Jonathan Stroud. If anybody out there has read that book. And
yes, I love that one.
Yeah, and it's got this very kind of like wise and old beyond his years, otherworldly figure stuck in a very specific kind of time and place and context and figuring out how to navigate that. The plays with like old English and not in this book I thought were like really interesting and funny. My second by a very close margin was also Nevermore. I've got a lot of the similar Harry Potter vibes, but I think just like personally because of how much I love just kind of the conceit of this devil and this like middle grade child having to like team up to figure out the solution for something just really spoke to me. And I did not get on with Nevermore. I did not get on with Witchwood. I just think that her particular style sacrifices story for language in a way I don't necessarily care for. And then I'm like 10,000 times more excited about Rick Riordan's imprint than I usually am about anything that Rick Riordan is actually writing himself. So, you know, for whatever that means, my vote is for the Alexandra Bracken, which is The Dreadful Tale of Prosper Redding.
Awesome. And Connor?
I also am voting for Nevermore. I just really loved it. Again, as people have said before, it's got those Harry Potter vibes, but I feel like there is a reason why people always compare it to Harry Potter, because the very beginning of the book, it does seem very Harry Potter-like. Like it's almost like, I forgot his name, but the guy who rescues her is kind of like Hagrid in my mind, at least at the very beginning. And then it very quickly diverges into its own story and its own thing. But I just loved Nevermore. I thought it was so great. Second was The Dreadful Tale of Prosper Redding. I also really liked the vibe. It's kind of like Salem-esque, and
those like New England fall vibes and stuff were very strong.
I really liked the atmosphere of that one. I gave that one 4 stars, and then after that was the Magnus Chase book. I really love Rick Riordan's silly dad humor. I get along with it. I've loved it since I was a kid. And I think that the Magnus Chase series does some good things. He's definitely including a lot more diversity in his books, which is nice. And I think that he did certain things really well in that series, but that third book was just not nearly as good as some of his other ones. Like, it's just a lot of buildup for then nothing. Like, nothing happens and everything's fine. It's like, well, that's stupid. And then I really didn't like Witchwood at all. I listened to that one on audiobook, and I really did not like the audiobook narration. And also, I agree with Chelsea.
I did not like the narrator on that book at all.
Yeah, I don't recommend it. And I think that Chelsea was right, that she sacrifices like story and stuff for the fancy writing that she has. And I didn't like it. So, Nevermore.
Awesome. And then do we have Sam's selections? I don't know who's in charge.
She chose Nevermore as well.
Okay.
Shocking everybody in the world.
So do we have the popular vote as well, and is it also Nevermore?
The popular vote is Nevermore.
The Raven?
Yeah. So
every time I picked it up, I thought it, and I was like, that's a weird headspace to be in for this book.
Yeah. I kind of knew this one was going to win, because even as the votes were like, even if the nominations were coming in, when I went to buy this and a bunch of other nominee like things at my local bookshop way back in like February, the bookseller saw Nevermore in my basket and basically like flipped out. And she happened to be to me about how amazing this book was. And that is a story of how I knew what was going to win. Like,
this discussion has actually made me want to read it, because I've had no interest, and now I'm like, guess I'm going to read this middle grade book.
Yeah, everyone has been telling me.
It doesn't feel middle grade to me. I think it feels more like a younger YA, but
I felt the least middle grade-y out of all the middle grade.
It's not condescending, is it? It doesn't patronize.
No, that's not like levels, isn't it? Like how YA is YA and how there's like.
Oh, it's all bullshit. We made it up, guys.
Well, I'm definitely adding that to my list of things to read. But again, we are really good with the transitions and how we're talking about stuff, because the next category is YA. So yeah, so those category for the judges for this category are myself, the other Sam, Elena, Chelsea, and Caitlin. I'm not going to go first this time. I'm going to hand it off to Elena first.
Oh, me. Okay, well, I read all of these ones, and actually, they were all three of these were really strong for me. I had 2 4-stars and a 5-star. The 5-star I gave to Strange the Dreamer. I just love her. I just don't think she can do any wrong. Like, she is the opposite of, like, for me, of like the Witchwood Tahara Mafi. She has the beautiful writing, but she doesn't sacrifice any of the story. I just find when I read it, I feel like I'm in a bit of a dream. I just get really like sucked in. It's a really enjoyable reading experience. So I loved that, and I was surprised myself that I liked Dark Duet because I wasn't that taken with the first one last year, and actually this one was a bit stronger. And Wind Witch, I just think is like a YA Robin Hobb. Like she's writing. I feel like for me, like Robin Hobb is a bit too in depth and too many people. Whereas Wind Witch, I like the multiple POV. I like the way she does the stories, but it feels more accessible for me in terms of fantasy. But it was Strange the Dreamer. She just. Yeah, she can't. And I'm really jealous because I keep seeing all these American booktubers holding up their next ones. And I'm like, no. So that's my vote. Strange the Dreamer.
Awesome. We have Chelsea, who I think I know what she's going to say.
Oh my God. Elena, just get out of my brain. It's like ridiculous. That was my exact thought. I thought it's the polar opposite to everything I felt about Witchwood, which is it's that same kind of playing with language, but in a way that doesn't sacrifice character or plot. I tell you, dude, Laini Taylor is able to crawl into the id of like 10 years ago me and just pull out these heroes and these male central figures that just like check so many boxes for me. It was the same thing with Akiva in her last trilogy. It's the same thing here with Laszlo and Strange the Dreamer. I just absolutely loved it. I liked Wind Witch. I felt it suffered a little bit from like middle book, next book syndrome. Yeah. So I just felt it got a little maybe bogged down in some of that. And I just didn't like Our Savage Song. I didn't like Dark Duet. I just think Victoria Schwab and I are not ever really going to be on the same like wavelength in terms of her work and me, which is totally fine, but it's got to go to Strange the Dreamer like times a million.
Awesome. Caitlin.
Okay, so I also have voted for Strange the Dreamer. So really my parroting is like strong tonight. I actually was really surprised because I didn't love the first series, the one you just mentioned. I forget the name of it.
Oh, Daughters of Smoke and Bone.
Yeah, I didn't love that. I thought it was fine when I read it, but it wasn't one that I really connected with. And then so going into this, I was kind of expecting not to like it that much, but actually I got really sucked in and yeah, completely fell in love with it. I think the only thing I personally don't love is like love, and that's just a thing that you see in a lot of YA, and I'm not a big fan of it when it's not done the way I like it, and for me this was a bit too much, so I docked like 1/2 star for it, but I still gave it a really high rating. Actually, I think this one got the highest rating out of everything I read, maybe tied with one other actually, but yeah, it was really good, so I am voting for that one. Didn't finish Our Dark Duet. I have the same problem. I just do not like this author. I don't get on with her work at all. So I've DNF'd everything by her recently and also last year. So yeah, not a fan. And then Wind Witch, I personally am not a big fan of the series. I thought the first one was stronger than the second one, and the second one was just okay for me. So it was fine, but yeah, definitely Strange the Dreamer.
I am so glad that I went last because I'm going to be Chelsea this time around and be like, you all are wrong.
I was going to say, I know you don't like this one.
I don't. Okay, so it's not that I don't like it. It's just that I don't like it as much as I wanted to like it. I've talked to a lot of people about Strange the Dreamer versus like Daughter of Smoke and Bone, and it seems like if you loved Daughter of Smoke and Bone, you didn't love this as much, and vice versa. Like people tend to be, I don't know, a little like separated in that from people that I've talked to, but I did not get on with this one as much as I wanted to. Her writing is stunning, and I love the theme she explores with like war especially. And I like her characters, but I didn't like them as much as I like the characters in Daughter of Smoke and Bone, and I thought that the plot suffered in this one. I didn't find her pacing to be very good. And I also did not really get on with Our Dark Duet. I thought that it was definitely weaker than the first book. I think that there was a lot of expectation that I had for the second one because I really surprisingly liked the first book. I'm also not a big Schwab fan. We don't tend to get on very well. But that one was just really disappointing to me. So while I don't think that Wind Witch is stronger than Truth Witch. I do think it has a little bit of second book syndrome. I do think overall, for me, it's the strongest in the category. It's still built on a lot of things, and there's a lot of things in there that I like. There's a scene that's basically the Pride and Prejudice Hand Darcy scene in fantasy. Like, come on, man, it's great. So I have to go with that one. I really like that series, and that's just like the strongest for me. But it was sort of strongest by default because the other ones were so disappointing for me personally.
Okay, so then our last one is from Sam.
Voted for Strange the Dreamer.
I was wrong. No, I'm joking. It's still really good.
Stand there in
But
your
I'm not
wrongness and be
surprised.
wrong.
I'm not surprised because Laini Taylor is like beloved by all, I feel like. So. And
yeah, shockingly enough, popular vote is Strange the Dreamer by Laini Taylor.
yeah.
So I
Good
doubt
job,
many,
popular voters.
Yeah.
I doubt many
Done
people
well.
are surprised. It was nominated onto the shortlist by more than double the votes of the other titles in YA and won by a very significant majority in a single round, which for those of you who aren't familiar with preferential voting, which is how we do it, that is a fancy thing.
Awesome. So the next category is debut. So for that, our judges are the other Sam, Elena, Caitlin, Rachel, and Thomas. Thomas, we're going to have you go first because you haven't gotten to talk
Ooh, golly.
at all. So have at it.
Gosh, I've almost forgotten the sound of my own voice.
All
that
of us have that problem.
never happened. This was a tough category because lo and behold, everything in it was really pretty good. I mean, really good stuff. The three good, strong nominees. Unlike so many of the other categories that, I can usually find at least one finalist that I think, okay, well, that's rubbish, so it's not even, and this wasn't like that. We had three really strong books. Ultimately, my choice is going to be The Bear and the Nightingale for the reason that of the three, I thought it, just a combination of the prose, the structure, the narrative, the way it just sort of paced its story, and drew you in, developed its characters, developed its mythology, all of that. I thought that it was best at being immersive, and so that's my choice. The other two, I enjoyed a great. I mean, Kings of the Wild, I thought was an absolute hoot. I just reviewed that recently. What I loved about Kings of the Wild was especially its depiction of this kind of friendship between this group of older men, and just the way you change your attitudes as you get older about things like friendship and family and loyalty and what really means things. And then of course I loved the whole rock and roll riff of all of it, just this whole world where adventurers are rock stars, and all the older ones are like, these kids are just style and no substance, and they're just not like it used to be, and all of that. So I got a kick out of all of that, and of course you have to have erectile dysfunction jokes when you have a story about older men too, and that was hilarious. So it was wildly entertaining, but at the same time well over long. I thought it could have been seriously trimmed down by quite a bit. Rambled a bit, just kind of getting around to its point. But a strong debut. And then of course City of Brass was another one where I thought the world was beautiful. And just in terms of sweeping me away to another time and place, it was extremely effective at that. But not quite as effective for me as The Bear and the Nightingale. So, Russian fantasy gets my vote.
Awesome. Rachel.
I agree. I think this was a really strong category. All the nominees sounded really great, though I surprised myself by having very definitely different opinions about all of them when I actually read them. My vote is going to go to The Bear and the Nightingale by Catherine Arden as well, because out of these three, it's the only one to me in the debut category that didn't actually feel like a debut novel. It felt like a very strong, fully fledged novel by somebody who'd been writing for years. Just the prose was there, this perfectly constructed story. I thought it was really, really great. Next would probably be Kings of the Wild, which surprises me because I did not get the humor in that one at all. It was a little, yeah.
Had to be there.
And I did not. It was a little bit too long, I think, like you said, Thomas. The mercenaries as a rock band's metaphor started to wear on me a little bit. It was a good joke at the beginning, but by the end, I was like, okay, I'm ready for this to end. And maybe I have an unpopular opinion here, but the end of it was really anticlimactic. I don't feel like anything really happened by the end. There's this very long journey, and then it did not deliver at the end with what I was expecting with this huge battle or whatever.
I kind of thought that was the point, but I see where you're coming from.
Yeah. And then the City of Brass, which I don't have, I could actually talk a long time about what I didn't like about this book. It was okay. The world building was great, but it pushed some buttons for me that I didn't quite like. So that was the one I was really disappointed about. I was really, really looking forward to the City of Brass, but yeah, The Bear and the Nightingale gets my vote.
Awesome. Caitlin.
Okay, so I also enjoyed all of the ones in this category, but I did not vote for The Bear and the Nightingale as my winner. I actually chose City of Brass as my winner because that was the other one that I read that was sort of on the same level for me as Strange the Dreamer. Like they were similar, I think, in terms of taking you to a different world and that sort of world building, the way that they did it. I thought that was kind of similar. But yeah, I just really enjoyed this one. It's one of those stories where I sort of got sucked in quite early. I listened to the audiobook narrator as well, so possibly that was more immersive, but I just really fell in love with the characters and the story in this one and just the world and how it all played out. I thought was really fun, and I definitely just would read more from the author. And I think for a debut, it wasn't perfectly polished. Like there was certainly things that could have been better, but I knew it was a debut going into it, so I wasn't thinking it was going to be the best book I'd ever read. It was just going to be something really fun, and that's exactly what it was for me. Kings of the Wild I really liked, but I agree, I think by the end of it, the humour grated on me a bit, and I kind of got sick of it because it's very male, and I got a bit annoyed with just like all these men being really like men. So
exactly.
Yeah. So I just kind of got a bit over it. So yeah, there was that, and then yeah, I really enjoyed The Bear and the Nightingale when I read it. I thought it was really strong, and I agree with you. I think it does feel probably more polished, but I just fell in love with the other book more. So yeah, City of Brass is my vote.
And Elena.
Oh, yeah, I was really underwhelmed with all three of these. My vote's going to go for Kings of the Wild. I finished this evening, and I fucking loved it. I hate I hate reading male protagonists, and funnily enough, Strange the Dreamer, yay. And I just love the sense of humor in this. I listened to all three of these on audio actually, and I'd find myself walking to school in the morning and I'd just be wetting myself. I just thought it was brilliant. I must have just been really and I was really like, I left this till the last minute because I thought, I'm going to hate this one. Why am I like putting myself through this? It's going to be terrible. And I didn't really like the front cover, and I'm always a bit like judging a book by its cover, which I know you shouldn't. And I just loved it. The first one I listened to was City of Brass, and I just thought it was a bit generic. I just thought it was a bit meh. And I really didn't like the main character. I didn't have any sort of like sympathies for her. So I gave that one 3 stars. The Bear and the Nightingale, I just got a bit bored. I don't know. It didn't do it for me. Maybe if I'd read it as a physical copy, it'd be different. But I just felt a bit like, meh. So I gave that one 3. But Kings of the Wild's a strong 4. It wasn't a 5-star, but it was a strong 4. Just for lols. I just thought it was really good fun. And like someone's put in the comments here about Moog's what is it, phylactic?
Yeah.
I just really enjoyed that. It just tickled
my
fancy.
That's why I think it's a great book for people who don't usually like these hyper-masculine epic fantasy.
Yeah, I do.
Like, you have this scene where all these guys are like armed and they're standing off with each other, and they're like, and then they're looking down and they've all got these hard-ons. And that's just sort of like awkward, right? And so, to me, I thought the whole thing was just like poking at all these different, visions of, hyper masculinity that you get in these epic fantasies.
Yeah, that is the joke. That is the joke.
Yeah, I thought it was I just really loved it. Yeah. So that's my vote, Kings of the World.
And what was Sam's vote for this?
The Bear and the Nightingale.
Bear and the Nightingale.
All right. So judges vote Bear and the Nightingale won.
It's officially The Bear and the Nightingale. And then popular vote is The Bear and the Nightingale. Well done on agreement. So
we've programmed our viewers well.
Interesting fact for this one. Best debut was a new category for 2018, and for the first time that meant a book could be eligible in 2 categories at the same time. So debut and then YA or fantasy or SF. And lo and behold, it happened immediately. First year we did it with this book, which was shortlisted in both Best Fantasy and Best Debut Novel. However, whilst winning this category, it lost fantasy. Spoiler alert. But which I think does show the value of the debut category, because for a first novel, it shows, you know, people freaking love it, but it cannot possibly stand up to some of the things in Best Fantasy for more established writers. So, like, I really...
K. Jemison.
Yeah, I mean, yes and no. There are various ways to think about that.
And there are and there aren't, but yeah, it was interesting to me as the judge coming in that
it makes sense. Like, I'm not surprised that it won in this category, and I'm not surprised that it didn't win in fantasy.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, and especially because I think we could even have a conversation about the fact that, like, there's some later books in the series in the fantasy category. How can a first book and a series live up to a finale when people are so attached to something after so many books?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a conversation we've had as judges too, as far as that's why they see we put a cap on, you know, only 3 books, you know, third book in a series is as far as we'll go, because you can't compare book 16 in a series to book 1. That's not fair. So that whole discussion too, but that's why I agree with Elizabeth that the value of the debut category, this is one of the reasons why it's so helpful, because we have a winner that wouldn't have won otherwise.
Yeah. And we had 2 other titles that hadn't appeared anywhere else on our list, and that hadn't necessarily appeared on lots of radars. So
and they were absolutely fantastic, like as it turned out.
Yeah, definitely. So the next 2 categories are our main event. What pretty much everybody is here for. Yes, like Best Picture split into 2. It's a big deal. And all of the judges are supposed to be voting, but I also don't know. Okay, so some of them aren't. I'm getting ahead. No. So if I call on you, well, I won't call on Elena, but if I call on you and you are judging, just let me know. But
I didn't like any of them.
No.
Okay, well, you can leave. You're done.
Right. So we're going to be going into a little more discussion with some of these potentially, but still keeping it spoiler free for the sake of time and for the sake of no spoilers. But so science fiction and fantasy both had 4 nominees each, which was a thing that I think we all weren't quite expecting, and it was good. And I think that they're both fairly strong categories. So Chelsea, let's hear from you first.
Wait, which category of the 2 are we doing first?
We're doing
Should we do fantasy?
No, we're doing science fiction first.
Science fiction first. Okay.
I told you guys before we started. No,
some of us weren't listening, Sam.
Some of us
are in that mode, Chelsea.
Trying to plug everything in, going, why are my
our teeth in the Google camera? Okay, leave me alone. Okay. I am actually surprising myself in this one, and I actually am going to choose the Collapsing Empire by John Scalzi, which I say is a surprise for me because I almost never pick the straight white dude in any judging category unless I don't have another choice. But I, with all due respect to the craft of story that Yoon Ha-Lee has created with everything that she's doing with her books, I just they make my brain hurt. They just make my brain hurt in a way that is not pleasant to me. And I've just been doing that thing where I'm reading and I am understanding the words on an individual level because I speak English, but I don't know what they mean and I don't really know what they're talking about. So I just I love them and I'm compelled enough to keep reading. But for me, it has to go to Collapsing Empire. Scalzi's works are always just that right blend of political military intrigue and kind of softer SF with really great character building. I listened to this one on audio and I really, really enjoyed it. I liked Waking Gods. I really like the audio for Waking Gods. This whole series on audio, I feel is bumped up to the next level because of the way that it's formatted and performed. And then Born, I just I don't know. I just don't think Jeff Vandermeer is for me. It's fine. This cute little purple flubber, but also not an evil. So no, thank you. So for me, it's going to have to be The Collapsing Empire by John Scalzi.
All right, Connor.
I'm actually voting for Raven Stratagem. I don't know. It was so weird because when I read the first book, I think I gave it 3.5 stars. I couldn't get into it. It was so confusing, but Raven Stratagem is so easy to get into. It's so easy to read. I just love the characters too. I think his name is like Mikades. He has so many interesting things happening with him.
Awesome.
And I liked the main character. I just all around really enjoyed it. I actually rated the Collapsing Empire the same, but I think that Raven Stratagem was just stronger for me. I also think that Born was just like, it was okay, but I didn't really love it. And then, what was the other one? Waking Gods. I actually also listened to this on audiobook, and I didn't really love it because I didn't like all of the narrators, like the voices that they gave the characters. So when characters with voices that I didn't like popped up, I just didn't like it. Like I was just like, stop, let's go back to the characters I do like. But it was really fun. But yeah, Raven Stratagem.
Yeah, that's a general problem that you can run into with audiobooks.
Yeah,
I mean, a lousy audiobook reader can make a really good book suck. And a brilliant audiobook reader can make a mediocre book
I've read
seem
some
better than it
stinkers
is.
that have been made way better when I listen to them later.
Right?
So it's
Yeah, fair. I'll go next. So I think this entire category was really strong, but I am going to say Born was my vote. I was definitely going between Born and Waking Gods. I listened to almost all of these except for Collapsing Empire on audiobook, so I'm kind of comparing them on the same level. I didn't love Collapsing Empire. Collapsing Empire was my least favorite. I don't know what it was. I read it before it came out. I was sent an advance copy and just was really disappointed because I like Scalzi's other stuff. I like Old Man's War and stuff, but just didn't like it. Raven Stratagem, I was pleasantly surprised by because I did not like the first book in this series. We talked about it a lot last year. I agree with Chelsea. I don't get on with them. But I think this one, because I listened to it on audio, it was easier for me. And this one was much more character focused, and the character interactions were more fleshed out this time around, and that helped me. But there were still moments where I was like, what is happening? And am I stupid? And I just don't like feeling stupid when I'm reading because I feel like I don't get it. Like I said, Waking Gods almost got my vote, and I think I was going to vote for it until we started this whole thing, and then I was thinking about my picks, and I just thought, you know what, no. Waking Gods, when I finished it, I loved it, and I was so engrossed by both of those books in that series because of the whole full cast. I just thought it was so much fun, but then as I've had some distance from it, I'm forgetting things about it. And it's just kind of like when you're in it, it's like you're in a movie, and then when you're done, I just am kind of like, I don't really know the characters' names anymore. Where Born is my small child, my small, possibly murderous child, and I love him, and I want to hold him, and I want to carry him in my pocket, and he's so sweet. So I just love it.
Murder you, Sam.
Love me, Rachel. I know, like it's just so sweet. And the narrator for that is, I forget what her name is, but she's amazing. Anything that she narrates, I immediately will listen to on audiobook. I don't care the genre, and I really like the new weird that is Vandermeer. I know that not everyone gets on with it, but it's a genre that I just really like, and like the biotech and the weird stuff, and it's weird. I know that there's some like pacing issues with Born, but I was just really on board with it, and it was like just very sweet. So my vote is for Born. So we are going to go with Frankie.
My vote is also for Born. When I originally read Born, I gave it like 2.5 stars, but it's a story that's kind of stayed with me, and I thought about it a lot, even after I was finished reading it. And it made me think. It made me think about relationships with each other as far as survival goes. But it also made me think, with all the different technologies and all of this meddling around that we as humans are doing with science, what is our relationship going to be like with the various things that we create when they start to become sentient and want to decide what they want to do for themselves and want to decide how they are going to interact with our world? And so I did think that.
Oh no. She's coming back.
Coming back.
This cataclysmic event, that took place that created this situation where our characters are left in this post-apocalyptic world. what was the company, you know, what I wanted to know more backstory. And I think that if I had known those things, that it would have made me really actually love this story, instead of just sort of enjoying it and liking it. And I just think that the other stories in this category just didn't work for me. I was one that had not read the first books in Yoon Ha Lee's series and in the Sleeping Giants, Waking Gods. So I was trying to listen to those, and I couldn't get past the first books on either one of those. So obviously I couldn't get into the second book. And then the Collapsing Empire, though I am a Scalzi fan, it was not his best work in my personal opinion. So I had to go with Born.
Okay, Caitlin.
Okay, so I'm also going for Born, actually.
Ooh.
So Born is doing quite well, surprisingly. I didn't think anyone else would.
We're only halfway through.
But yeah, no, I kind of hated Born when I started it. I was audiobooking it and I really liked the narrator, so I carried on listening to it, even though I was like, okay, this is so weird. This is too much weird. And I'd never read any other Jeff Vandermeer, so it was my first time.
They're all
reading
like that.
him.
They're all
But
very
yeah,
weird.
I've since
They're
heard they're
very
super
weird.
weird. But I'd read some new weird stuff, so I kind of knew it was going to be a bit like that. So I thought, you know, I'll give it a chance. And then, I don't know, it grew on me. Born grew on me. And I was like, I love you. By the end of the book, I was totally in love, like Sam. And just, yeah, I couldn't help but love this bizarre...
When did old weird die? We keep talking about the new weird genre. I want old weird back. I didn't think we were done with that yet.
Yeah, no. But yeah, no, I really liked Born. I also really liked Waking Gods on audio and Sleeping Giants and all of them. I like the audiobook format for them. I agree there's some who are weird with the voices, Connor, so I totally get that. But yeah, no, I really enjoyed it. I've just listened to the final one, actually, so it's fresh in my mind. But it just didn't quite stay with me, like Sam was saying. It was the same problem. Like, once you're done, you forget everyone. It's just when you're in the moment, it's really fun. And then Raven Stratagem, I didn't like the first one. I didn't like the second one. I DNF'd it. Not for me. Collapsing Empire, not interested. I think I listened to 10 minutes and that was it of the audiobook. I was out. I do not really enjoy military stuff. And I could tell straight away this was not going to be one for me. So yeah, I checked out early on that one because it was just really not my style of writing. I actually like The Old Man's War. But yeah, no, this one was not for me.
Yeah, Old Man's War to me was definitely better than the Collapse.
For the record, I do not think this is Scalzi's best work. I just thought it was the best book in the category. Scalzi's strongest showing.
Fuzzy
Yeah, no,
Nation.
that's fair. So I think
Fuzzy
this
Nation.
one's-
I heard you,
Yeah.
Connor. Fuzzy Nation.
It's so good.
This one's a bit divisive, but yeah, Born was
It
my vote.
Yeah, Rachel.
Raven Stratagem.
Oh,
We
wow,
knew
we're
that.
all so split.
I love everything that Yoon Ha Lee does. He's pretty amazing. Yeah, and I reread Raven Stratagem for the awards, and I loved it even more the second
Oh,
time
God bless
around.
you, friend.
Yeah.
It was so much easier to understand both the first and the second books in this series upon rereading them. I just caught so much more of the detail. It made so much more sense. So yeah, I loved it so much. Mikadez is my favorite thing. I want an entire book devoted to Mikadez.
Just to make it
He's so
For
messed
the record, Elizabeth's mic is muted, but she's doing like clapping emojis and praise hands every time Nikki does it. Comes up, she's also very on board with that. I just felt like maybe the audience should know.
Born is my second favorite in this category. Frankly, I don't think it stuck with me very long. I read it right after it came out, so it was quite a while ago. But it made me very emotional at the time. And I kind of agree with everything that Frankie said about it. It was good for that. I also knew what I was getting myself into because I'd read, Vandermeer's Southern Reach trilogy before then, and I really enjoyed them. So it worked for me. Collapsing Empire, a lot of fun. I initially really disliked it because of the cliffhanger ending. It really irritated me so much.
That's
It was
valid.
all set up. It was all set up, and I was really annoyed that I thought I had to wait like 2 years for the next book. Thankfully, that's not the case anymore. So it was fun. I actually think more highly of it now than when I was reading it, but not his best work. And Waking Gods, my sincere apologies to everybody here who loves the theme of Spinal.
Oh, go right ahead.
I read the first book in print, and then I switched to audiobook for Waking Gods because everybody recommended that to me. And I think the entire series is crap, and I won't say anything more than that.
All right, then we can all go home then. All right. Decided.
Okay, Thomas, I'm interested because I feel like we're very split. So.
Yeah, well, it should come as no surprise to anybody who's kept up with my channel. But yeah, Born is my little squishy blobby baby. You know, he's my boy.
He's gonna murder you all in your sleep and eat your body. Your little murderous Jello baby.
Yeah. This was a book that was such a surprise on so many levels, even for Jeff Vandermeer. But I think it might actually be a book that you can appreciate more if you have read the Southern Reach trilogy, because it is like it, but then it is almost like such a complete 180 degrees in terms of its tone, in terms of the way it connects you to characters, in terms of the way it is actually more of a traditional kind of story. Like the Southern Reach trilogy, after a while, it just becomes this stream of consciousness. What the fuck, you know? And which is part of its quality, right? And it's fascinating. And with Born, what you have is basically this post-apocalyptic adventure. It's got a 3-act structure, very traditional. And you have this emotional bond between these two characters, Rachel and Bourne. And it's this mother and child thing, which is just so touching and tender. And it's weird because he's a blob that she pulled off the back of a 4-story tall flying radioactive bear.
Yeah.
And I just love the way it was serious but playful at the same time. Like it gave you that emotional connection. It had all these beautiful little grace notes. Like the way Bourne just kind of sees this horrible post-apocalyptic world differently than everyone. Like, you know, he sees all this beauty in all this destruction. And he has just a different way of kind of processing information. And then Rachel sort of learns from him. And then the relationship gets more complicated. But in the midst of that, you also have this story that is just sort of playfully riffing on epic fantasy, kaiju stories, you know, all these science fiction tropes like the evil corporation. It's just kind of a riff on all of that. And it's like, it's playful and yet serious and sad at the same time. And I just bought it. I just like went with it. And it was just delightful. So yeah, I'll be the first to say, yeah, maybe not the most accessible book in the world unless you're willing to kind of rewire your brain and kind of meet it halfway. But I think that if you do, it'll grow like it's grown on so many of us here. And as for the other finalists, next up, very close next up for me would have been Raven Stratagem, because this is a trilogy where the second book is like, I think, much better and more enjoyable than the first one, although rereading Nine Fox Gambit is the second time it's a much easier go. And it's a lot more, like Rachel said, of the universe becomes comprehensible. Whereas first it's like, you know, then it's so much easier the second time around. And then with the second book is better. It's not the kind of thing that it's probably, if, you know, it's the kind of science fiction a lot of people just say, it's difficult, I can't do it. Difficult science fiction doesn't really play with a lot of readers. And that's the thing that I think just makes science fiction generally less accessible to people than fantasy. Fantasy deals in easy to grasp archetypes and things like that. But I like this kind of science fiction that says, no, I'm going to rewrite the rules. I'm going to kind of like make you see, I'm just going to drop you in this and you've got to catch up. And I think that science fiction is really good when it does that, even if it says, I know that I'm not going to connect with every single person who tries to read this, but, you know, I'm ready to kind of take this in a new direction. But Raven Stratagem, I think, does it probably a bit more comprehensively than Nine Fox Gambit, and then Revenant Gun is even better. So I think on the whole, this is a very important, like the trilogy is an important work in science fiction. But again, Born is still my baby. And then as for Collapsing Empire, enjoyed it, funny, lots of fun, but just kind of on that level. And finally, yeah, I thought Sleeping Giants was rubbish, and so that meant Waking Gods, my expectation for Waking Gods was like 1 inch off the ground, and the book still stumbled over it. So that was, so that's it for me for science fiction.
Wow, we had a more divisive category than I was personally expecting it to be, as far as everybody's choices. But it sounds like Born ultimately won judge's pick, right?
Well,
Yes.
Samantha
Yeah, and
looks like
Elizabeth's over
also
there with her
won
like
hers.
villain hands, ready
Right.
to tell us who won the popular category.
We got Sam's vote as well.
Oh yeah, what was Sam's vote?
Collapsing Empire.
Sam did collapse.
Yes! I will stand here not alone.
Still lost though, so
That's fine. I'm fine with losing as long as I don't have to lose alone. Nobody wants to be the only loser.
So we had no votes for Waking Gods.
Wow, y'all really didn't like it.
Yeah.
No,
No, I mean from you judges.
Okay. I was like, dang, popular vote.
Which is interesting
My
because
bad.
the popular vote won by a frickin' mile.
Wow.
Really?
Yeah, this won substantially. Not as easily as some of the other like ones where I was like, yeah, I won in one round. Not quite like that. But
I would be very interested to know how many of the people who voted for it listened to it on audio as opposed to like reading it in print. Just out of curiosity.
It's
But I
definitely
look
the
back-
most accessible. Like it's
Yeah.
definitely like it's like the
Yep.
grown-up version of the Illuminate. Is it Illuminate? Yeah, Illuminate
Yeah,
files.
it's kind of like that. Yeah.
Easy
Yeah.
to get through. It's that like just file, where some of the other ones are all freaking weird in some way.
Yeah.
The rest of
Yeah.
them are, and this one is just very straightforward and easy to get through. So there is some level of like, not to say that like, oh, it didn't deserve it because I thought it was still a really good time. I personally really enjoyed it, but like, there's something to be said for how different all the other ones are compared to that one.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But what I was interested in is I looked back to last year. So it turns out that Waking Gods has been a bit of a like, not to be a pun, but like a sleeping like thing.
Sleeping Giant.
Oh, because Sleeping Giant literally only received 6 nominations in the 2017 awards, so it didn't even get anywhere near the shortlist. So, and I remember people not loving it, and then suddenly this thing has come out of nowhere, and like it's huge. Everybody loves it. So I wonder what would have happened if it had got on last year.
Yeah. Interesting. Are they making movies out of these?
Oh, they have to be.
Not that
They
I've
have to at least
heard.
be optioned, right?
Yeah, I was just wondering if they started getting hype because they're being made into films, but apparently not. So that was just seeing if that was a connection that was being made. So
I mean, maybe.
yeah,
I just
I
hope
wouldn't be surprised.
I'd be interested to see how they deal with the leg situation.
I mean, there's oh god,
Yeah, that would be,
Complete
there's a
spinal
lot of things they
traction.
have to deal with.
Yeah.
yeah.
I just hope all of you who voted for Born are ready to befriend the mold that grows on your cheese when it becomes sentient and decides
my
it wants to
God,
start
I
living
can't
in your
wait.
apartment and like not paying rent, and it wants to just like walk around in your pocket all the time.
I mean, it definitely Born had his creepy moments, but he's still a cute little bean, you know.
I
Who
love
might murder?
Born.
He just wants
friends
not
who might
little.
murder you are not good friends, and I just feel like maybe that should be the baseline of where we're starting.
That's fair.
Well, but he
Also-
only murdered like those punk kids who deserved it, and the big
Yes.
And
I mean,
That's
shit, yeah, vigilanteism. If we're gonna murder, we're gonna do it by our own code of
Yeah.
justice. Batman,
So he
damn right.
friends with the good murderer, like the murderer who's good at murdering, like Becca Des.
Yeah, obviously, if I'm gonna murder, I want you to be good at it. I don't want to be friends with a bad murdering blob of jello. Like, please come correct, but like also. Oh man, guys, last category.
I know,
Oh, my
I know. We
goodness.
really got through this.
We are champs this year.
Yeah, I'm also very intrigued about this category. I don't know about you guys, but I am very I have a lot of feelings about a lot of them, but I don't really know what. I feel like I'm that
can't even
small
remember.
child at the dinner table when you're at a restaurant, you're ordering and you don't know what you want. You're like getting nervous and you're like, they're gonna call on me next. I still don't know what I'm picking, so you'll hear it when I eventually pick it because I don't know. So yeah, let's start with Chelsea.
All right, I'm not suffering any existential crisis here. I'm going to vote for Red Sister by Mark Lawrence because murdering acid nuns are
Yes.
fucking everything that I'm here for in 2018. And that is, again, like, I feel like I almost have to like preface that, right, with like no disrespect to N.K. Jemisin. Obviously, the last installment in this like epic thing that she has created is in no way like slouching or like not deserving, but also like I picked it up and I read the back and I like started the first page and it was one of those things where my brain was like, this is not a good decision. You need to go to bed and be an adult and like make good choices. And then I just ignored it and stayed up till some like ungodly hour reading this like not exactly short book. So I just absolutely loved every single part of it. I hated Conjuring of Light. I just don't like V.E. Schwab's books. I mean, we've already talked about it. I just like, that's not it can take a swift, long walk off a very short pier. And I liked The Bear and the Nightingale. I thought it was fine. I thought it obviously did better in the debut category than it was just, I mean, it's just up a bunch of very heavy hitters in this category. So I feel like that kind of was almost a little unfair to it just in terms of like its starting line for some of the things it's being compared to. But it was obviously a delightful book. But I just like, God, I've just never so badly wanted to be an assassin nun, which like is saying something because I played a lot of Assassin's Creed. Like I play a lot of video games where that's actually a thing that happens. So like, I'm just saying, I really loved it. My vote is for Red Sister by Mark Lawrence.
Awesome. Connor.
I'm also voting for Red Sister. I loved that book. It was so good. I love Nona. I also thought, is Nona on the autism spectrum? I really liked seeing her like being on the spectrum and then being the main character of this amazing, crazy novel. I loved that one. I actually rated The Stone Sky the lowest out of all of them.
Oh, wow.
I don't know why. I just couldn't get into the last book. I ended up, hi buddy. No, came over.
Nick is expressing disapproval.
Oh yeah. So I was physically reading it, and then I don't know. I just had no motivation to continue, and Nawson was getting on my nerves, so didn't love that one as much as I was hoping to. It was still really good. And then I actually liked A Conjuring of Light a lot better than I liked the first two in the series. I thought that she did the secondary characters in this last book, a lot better, and I could connect with them, and I got more invested in the story and what was happening, so I enjoyed that one surprisingly. And then, what was the other one? I can't even remember.
Bear and Nightingale.
Nightingale. I liked that one, but it definitely wasn't as good as Red Sister for me.
Awesome. So. Elena, are you voting for fantasy or did you not? Okay, so neither of those. So I wasn't sure. I didn't want to leave you out. Frankie.
All right. So my vote is definitely for Red Sister by Mark Lawrence. This was an awesome book. It was so much fun. I felt like it combined the elements of some like spiritual things with fantasy elements, with relationships between girls and the underdog story, which, by the way, I am a huge fan of underdog stories. I'm a huge fan of training montages. And this book gave us all of that. And I just really loved some of the rivalries. I am so anticipating seeing more about the relationships between the girls or the trainees and the nuns. I really want to know more nun backstories. I'm hoping that we get to see that as we get further into the series. Everything about this series, or everything about this book, gripped me and made me want to read whatever else is coming in the series and know how this arc completes itself. Now, I'm going to talk a bit about The Bear and the Nightingale because I didn't do debut. But I wanted to love The Bear and the Nightingale, and I didn't. And I actually had tried to read The Bear and Nightingale when it first came out. And then I obviously read it again for Booktube SFF Awards. And I thought that it was a beautifully written book, but it was a book where I did not feel there was as much happening as I wanted to happen. I wanted to see more movement in the story. And I'll tell you something that maybe might be kind of a one-off thing, but I found the relationship between the priest and the main character, I found that relationship disturbing, to the point that I actually tweeted about it and asked people's opinions, like, is this just me? But I felt very, very uncomfortable with the dynamic between those two characters, and it gave me creepy vibes.
He's definitely creepy.
I think that was
that's creepy. He's Frollo from The Hunchback. Sorry, Ellen.
Oh my God! No, that's exactly what I thought. Sam,
Frollo,
I was like, somebody wrote Frollo into this Russian fantasy book. What is happening?
I was waiting for him to start singing Hellfire. Like, it was a whole thing.
Yeah, and like sniffing her hair all creepy and tossing her scarves into the like
So
churches.
weird.
Yeah.
Crazy. So I'm getting all like heebies.
Yeah,
thinking about it.
I don't think you were supposed to find it a comfortable relationship.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
definitely.
feel like maybe if you
Well,
did,
you know,
there's like something there to unpack.
That's why I tweeted about it, and I talked to some people on Instagram about it, because I wanted to know, like, are you picking up on this? And I think a lot of people sort of excused that relationship away based on the time period and the fact that, you know, girls were looking to be married and in relationships much younger. And
Your
I said,
historical
I
accuracy is
do
bullshit.
not care. This is still creeptastic, and that's the end of it. So with regard, I have an unpopular opinion about N.K. Jemisin. I find her writing to be very boring. Now, I'm not going to say that I will never try to come back to this series, because I think that maybe I'm missing some things, and maybe I'll do like a buddy read or something, but I was bored out of my gourd. So, and then I just don't like V.E. Schwab, so never mind. So Red
Awesome. Well, I'm still feeling very conflicted, but I feel like I have to just dive
Go,
in
Sam,
and
you have to
embrace it. You know, put that energy out there. All right. So all of these books were probably some of my favorites that I've read in the last year. I loved all of them for different reasons. I was very surprised by Conjuring of Light. That is not my vote, by the way, but I was surprised by it
Oh my God.
because I hated, loathed, suffered through that damn series, and I did not want to read A Conjuring of Light, and I was so mad when everybody put it on the short list. I was like very angry. And then I listened to it because my expectations were so low that I think I ended up really enjoying it. I think the fact that she paid more attention to the side characters and not the stupid main characters is what really helped.
Lila
because
is the worst.
But she is the worst.
Oh my God, she's the worst.
So for some reason,
How do you just?
she was less bad this time. I don't know. Maybe because
Was
she
she
didn't
less
follow
bad,
her
or did we
less.
just have to hang out with her less? Because those are like two
Yes.
different things.
Yes, she continued her stupid monologues about not being like other girls, but like I still was just like, fine, go and do
queen
your
was
thing.
great.
It's fine. Yeah, so I was feeling better about that. I also really liked The Bear and the Nightingale because it's just very on-brand for me. It has like Hades and Persephone vibes to it, and I just, you know, I feel ways about it, and just the aesthetic of it, and I really like Eastern European folklore, so that was good. But again, it didn't live up to the rest of them necessarily, but I'm really looking forward to the rest of that series. I think it's going to be amazing and one of my favorites. And so I'm struggling between Red Sister and The Stone Sky. So I loved The Stone Sky, and I love N.K. Jemisin, and I will continue to read everything that she writes. And I really enjoyed the mother-daughter dynamic thing. I love how Asun is like so unlikable, and she's selfish, and everyone calls her out on it, and she just makes bad decisions. And I really like that, and I like the sacrifice of motherhood and all that kind of stuff that was thrown out there. But there were times that I felt like it started to get kind of rushy towards the end, and there were still things that I feel like needed more explanation or something, or I want to know more about it, and it just kind of wasn't quite wrapped up. So I think for that reason, I am also going to be saying Red Sister was my favorite.
Yeah.
Because again, I think the main theme with this whole fantasy category is that there's a lot of unlikable characters in this fantasy category.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was really great. That's
Welcome
why I
to
enjoyed
Fantasy 2K18.
Yeah, and I agree that magical assassin nuns is like my aesthetic five ever, and I just want to live in that world. I liked the magic system and how it wasn't explained.
It's dying.
Oh my God, it was so great. I love that a lot of them are in love with each other, and like it's just like give me more.
Assassin women loving women nuns, like say more words that are in my wheelhouse.
Oh my
They're
gosh.
so good. It was so good.
I kept listening to the audiobook and could not put it down, and I just
The audiobook was good.
The audiobook was excellent on this one.
Yeah, and just it was gruesome too, and I also want to know a lot of the nun backstories, like tell me everything about you. And so Red Sister has my vote ultimately.
Woo! Awesome.
So next is Caitlin.
Red Sister. Yes! Okay, I loved Red Sister. I read Red Sister ages ago, and I still love it. And I've since read Grey Sister, and also love that one. But yeah,
I don't hate you, but also I maybe hate you.
I love it.
So good.
Yeah, no, this series, the moment I started reading it, I was like, this is my stuff. This is for me. This is the sort of book I love. And it was. And I've read quite a few Mark Lawrence books, and all the other books, my one thing with them was like, obviously they're dark and twisted and whatever, but like, where are the ladies? There's not enough ladies. And then this came along and I was like, the ladies! It was the best. So yeah, I loved Red Sister, really enjoyed it, and just instantly was like, this is great. I really enjoyed Stone Sky, but I don't think it was as strong as some of the others in the series. I don't think it ended on the strongest note. So I also didn't rate it as highly as I rated the previous two, which was a bit of a shame. I still really liked it. And then Bear and the Nightingale I really liked, but wasn't strong enough, I don't think, to contend. And I DNF'd Conjuring of Light because no.
Her writing style is the worst.
It's horrendous. I just
she uses so many like appositives every single sentence. It's nuts.
I love her ideas. This is my problem, is I love her ideas.
Agreed.
Always. The concept is so good, and then it just flops massively, and I'm like, why? Like, why?
She needs to get someone else to write them for her.
Yeah, I just
You gotta be a person.
Oh my god, I'm living for this shade. Even if I don't think Victoria Damodawa is amazing.
Did Connor just said she's a nice person? Is that right?
I'm sure she's a delightful person. And you know what? She didn't sell like a
lovely.
gajillion copies of her books because other people don't like them. Like, obviously, they're working for lots of people.
Older books better than her newer ones. I think she's gotten like worse as a writer, which is kind of weird.
I do wonder if she suffers from the writing multiple book syndrome, because girl churns them out. But
it's weird to straddle that adult YA divide too. That can do some weird things to your style.
That's probably something to it, because it's like she has the V.E. Schwab and the Victoria Schwab.
Yeah.
But when you look at, there's really not much distinction to be made between her various identities.
We do. Yeah. Everyone should know by now that, like, if you're coming in here, it's not going to be like a Schwab party. Okay? Like, you've been warned.
And everybody leaves, and we're just talking to ourselves.
Caitlin, were you done with everything? Or?
Yeah. So that's my vote. Red Sister.
Awesome.
Red Sister for the win.
Yes.
It's definitely one now, right? Like, we're over halfway.
No matter what happens.
5.
Okay.
Rachel.
I'm about to break your Red Sister streak
No.
here.
I'm like 0% surprised that this is not your pick, Rachel. Like, I was like, this is probably not going to be a Rachel book. Like, as I was reading.
Yeah.
I'll talk about that first, actually, because I am the only person here who DNF'd Red Sister, which I want to emphasize is not because of the quality of the book. I started to feel physically ill while I was reading the scene with the guy beating the mule to death in order to break the spirit of a young boy.
It's dark.
Yeah, that's
I
fair.
thought I was going to have an anxiety attack from the violence and the horrible stuff. So,
That's Mark Lawrence for you.
Yeah. So, but despite the fact that I couldn't finish the book, I was actually really interested in some of the world building and stuff. I wish I could return to it, but it's not going to work.
Some Mark Lawrence light with a little less bodies.
Yeah, body horror. There's a lot of that. With her.
Take out all the grim, dark stuff and all the violence.
What he's known for.
And then I'll have kind assassin nuns stabbing their enemies to death.
They pray for them.
Oh,
So,
thoughts and prayers, guys. Hashtags, thoughts and prayers.
So my vote in this category goes to The Stone Sky. I utterly loved the entire series, and I thought that the ending was magnificent. Also, I've already talked about The Bear and the Nightingale. I liked it a lot. It came kind of in second for me. And I was doing a really good job of never reading a Schwab book until I got to this category. And so I binge read them all on audiobook, which made the writing bearable.
Yeah.
And, for the most part, I thought it was okay, but I was actually rather disappointed by A Conjuring of Light. It just did not leave the series in a way that I thought was exciting at all. So, yeah.
All right, Thomas.
A Stone Sky. Yeah,
He says as though it
It's
should
like,
just be known unto all of us.
Yeah,
I feel like you should have a cigar and like a
All right,
brown
guys,
bag.
write it in the
What else
stone
is gonna be?
tablets. Let's go.
There you are. Yeah, this is this whole trilogy is Ursula K. Le Guin level stuff. This is classic epic fantasy in the making, and it's like this final volume this trilogy, probably the most satisfying. So many like fantasy series, the last book just drops the ball hard, and this didn't. I mean, it's very hard. Endings are hard. And she was just knocked it out of the park with that. Now, for this category for me, though, I will say it was a contest pretty much strictly between Stone Sky and Red Sister, and because Bear and the Nightingale got my vote for debut, so that kind of I just disregarded.
You already got one vote.
Yeah, and
right.
Right. And then Vicky Schwab, I mean, I don't seem to hate the ground she walks on as much as like all the rest of you do, but at the same time, I just can't really get worked up about her. I find her just like average. Yeah, I mean, she's just like this platonic ideal of averageness to me.
That might have been worse than anything we said.
Well, just sort of like her books kind of go in one eyeball and out. Although I will say because I was surprised that the Savage Song last year I actually liked a little bit better than I was expecting to, but then I thought Dark Duet didn't measure up. It's like, okay, yeah, she went back to being herself. Now, as for Red Sister, I was very pleasantly surprised by Red Sister, which I was expecting to hate, because the only other thing I've read by Mark Lawrence was like the Prince of Thorns, King of Thorns, those, and I did not like those at all. And so the world that he creates with Red Sister was just surprisingly absorbing and believable, and compelling, and really made me want to get more in depth with all of this. And sure, it's grimdark and it has those horrible bits. I mean, that's just kind of par for the course with Mark Lawrence. But it's I'll just say for to all you Red Sister people out there, I liked it considerably more than I thought I was going to. I was expecting it at best to be, well, at least my expectation going in was, well, I hope it's at least better than the frickin' Prince of Thorns and all those. And it by an order of magnitude, it was. Yeah. So that kind of makes me want to go and like sort of read the interstitial series, like, maybe catch up with the ones that I skipped to see his progression and all of that. And I really do want to read Grey Sister now too, like want to jump right into Grey Sister, because I did like it a lot. But I think that I can understand maybe, all right, it seems like piling on where just like every year, one of these, the Broken Earth books gets an award or something. But I mean, if it's got it, it's got it. And I can't just like not be honest with myself. I think it's the best. So, but at least there won't be a book 4, so I won't have her to vote for next year. So that'll be done. But
God damn you, Elizabeth! I'm a fucking pixie over here trying so hard to listen to Thomas, and you are waving shiny shit in the camera, and it is so rude. How dare you, my dear?
Just before we get into the popular
He's holding
vote,
up the shiny trophy, and I'm over here trying to like listen to Thomas.
Sam's vote was probably Red Sister, I'm assuming.
It was Red Sister.
Yeah.
I know he's been gushing about it. So Red Sister won for judges by a landslide.
Oh yeah.
So what? Yeah, Elizabeth, what is popular vote?
Oh, are we surprised? It's the Stone Sky.
Stone Sky.
It would be.
All right, y'all can stand there in your wrongness and be wrong together. That's fine. Welcome. Loving.
I think Stone Sky unanimously came like second on all of us.
Yeah.
And my thing is like, to me, it's that hard call, like we were just talking about between like last book, first book, right? Is like, do you award like this kind of accumulation of this awesome thing that she's created versus like the outlaying start of this brand new thing that's happening.
Yeah.
So,
but
to each your flavor, folks.
Yeah, books 1 and 2 won the 2016 and 2017 awards, like the Booktube SF awards, respectively, but also the Hugo Awards, and it's up for best novel.
It's gonna win the fucking Hugo this year. Like, oh my god.
I'm like 100% believe it will. It will.
Yeah. I mean,
it
would be Return of the King not winning an Oscar. Like, get out of here. And it doesn't take home the Hugo.
It's the first time an author will have won the award for 3 consecutive years.
Wow.
And it's a black woman. Fuck you.
And I mean, if it happens, it'll be
American
very exciting.
one ever.
No, she deserves it for sure.
Yeah.
It's going to be crazy to not have a Broken Earth book in the Booktube SF.
I'm kind of excited for next year. Like, there's a lot of series that we've kind of wrapped up.
Yeah.
That I will
because it's like it's one of this is like that year that Helen Mirren was up for the Oscar, and you just want to tell all the other actresses, yeah, you were really good, but Helen Mirren, right?
Like, come on, dude. Like, come on.
But I mean, to continue the shade, this is the 4th book of Schwab's that has been nominated and not won anything.
I mean,
Yeah,
I don't want to
why-
say stop nominating her books because, like, y'all do you, but like maybe take a hint. I'm
So-
just saying.
Yeah, why
Maybe
does
this
that happen?
award is just not the one for Schwab.
So,
Like,
Vicky Schwab is the Susan Ruth of the Booktube SFF Awards.
Yeah.
Except she won eventually, and I don't think that
Well, after
Victoria's
what,
ever
like,
gonna.
25 years or something. So, yeah.
I swear to God, if we sell V.E. Schwab books in this award system still going on in 25 years and she's still nominated, maybe we should just fucking give it to her then.
Right?
Like we did this season.
every year she'll be in
That's
it.
her strategy. I mean, she's writing in like every genre so that she's going to end up in the BookTube SFF Awards at some.
If you just write in everything
Like,
all the time,
See what you're
eventually
doing,
someone will give you
Victoria Schwab. We get it. You love us. We get it.
Yeah. She's a fan
I just wish we
favorite.
loved
I
you
mean,
back.
she's
Right?
a fan favorite, you know.
She
Yeah, Shades of Magic is in development for series and TV series, and she just got $1 million deal with Tor. So.
Yes. I mean, and
So.
props to her. I mean,
Yeah, it's admirable.
working her butt off, honestly. So.
I mean, like, good for her, but I'm going to be the stick in the mud to say TV doesn't have anything else that they could be optioning to develop. There's no other stories out there that we could be picking
Oh,
up to
there's
develop.
dozens of things.
It's fine.
being
It's
developed
fine.
that
It's
God
fine.
knows.
It's fine.
Yeah. I mean,
My overwhelming grumpiness is about to bring that whole V.E. Schwab conversation real down to like the ground.
I think it's been down. I mean, I don't think you're really like taking any lower. Like we've really.
I mean,
came in
platonic
low.
ideal of average is definitely something I'm feeling to say to everyone who ever talks to me on Twitter ever again. You just get out of here.
Yeah. But if anybody else is a votes like nerd, then they may be interested to know that the fantasy one was the category that took the most rounds of voting to get to a majority. So
Okay, lots of splits. Okay.
yeah,
that's interesting.
and it was close to, much as I hate to say it, the Schwab book. It wasn't close, but it took her a long time to outrun it to a majority.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not surprised. Schwab is very popular on BookTube.
All right.
Yeah.
Nice.
But that
Like I said, I think it's that very close YA crossover and that appeal. You
Sam.
know.
I say that concludes and we keep talking. So that
Do you know us at all?
on brand.
Any of the people in this lineup,
On
even
brand.
When do we shut up?
Right? But
No.
this is the official conclusion of this year's BookTube SFF. Yay! So congratulations to all of our winners, both judges winners who are the correct winners and the popular vote winners. But we will be in touch with all of you that have participated. Thank you guys, everyone that participated with us, did the read alogs, did the babbles. You guys keep this alive and keep this exciting for us because we get very bogged down throughout the year.
Yes.
It becomes tortuous and we're very angry and it's just, yeah. So thank you guys for keeping it alive and for keeping it fun. We all really appreciate that as judges, but we will be in touch with you guys probably towards the end of 2018 about next year's awards. I think there'll be, as every year, changes coming and things implemented and everything, and we will be keeping in touch with you guys as those things are decided upon and keeping the awards alive and everything else. So thank you guys all for watching. Everybody's information and channels will be linked down below, as well as the BookTube SFF, just general information and stuff, once I get that typed down there. And thank you to all the lovely judges and to Elizabeth for keeping this thing going. Yay!
Number queen.
Our admin queen.
Thank you so much. So thanks everybody for watching, and we'll see you next year.
Bye.
Bye.